So we're here calmly talking about all this, but the big picture is none of this is by accident. Do you agree? I mean, being on the inside of this, and I even know at your level it's compartmentalized, that there is a method to the madness, or are you saying it's just from what you've seen, absolute profit taking?
I would say both. There is a method to the madness, and in big pharma, it's all about making a profit and cutting corners and getting from point A to point B to get your drug approved so you look really good to the stockholders. And if you're a small company, to get the big investors to come in and buy you out or, promote your clinical trials in your company and things like that. So, but there is a method. I mean, there is, it's a very incestuous business. I mean, everybody, even with myself, I've probably worked for more than a half a dozen different companies, and in that time kept running into the same people sort of being recycled around because it is very, sort of specialized.
And you were telling me off air, but it's okay to talk about this, that the ruthless people that would cover up bad vaccine reactions and things, they just go right to the top.
Yeah, the one doctor that the meeting I sat in where she was just like zip, 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 and making this drug look better, it wasn't a blinded study. It was because we found out later the company was up for sale to a bigger pharmaceutical company, and they wanted to just sort of move this along so that when they, sold out to the bigger pharmaceutical company, they would get more money and look more, enticing to them.
And will it be too revealing to say what drug that was, or?
It's a drug that they no longer. It was a form of drug that.
Don't say it if it's going to reveal you.
It's going to reveal me. So.
But it did turn out. It did turn out to be bad. They couldn't cover it up.
Well, it turned out to be. When I saw what she was sort of changing, it wasn't anything horrible. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like she was moving like severe diarrhea down to moderate or mild. It's just things like that. So they were still reporting it, but they were underreporting the severity of what was going on. And so basically when they finally did the final blinded study and different things like that, they found out it really wasn't very effective or really didn't do anything. But by that time, their company had sold to the bigger company, and she had been promoted for her actions to director of the clinical research.
Let me keep you a few more into the next segment, then we're going to let you go, but I want to have you back up for a part two. Why did you decide to go public? I mean, what finally brought you to the point of contacting InfoWars?
Well, I listen to you basically almost every night when I work on stuff. I have you on my little iTunes podcast, and, I had been telling people this, that I felt almost like, not so much like Dr. Mengele, because I'm not really shooting people up, but I felt kind of like the person who, keeps the books and keeps the trains running on time. And, the things that I've told you that we can't really go into, and maybe for a part two I can sort of ferret this out maybe a little bit without getting in too much trouble, but that there was just a lot of kind of abuse of how they ran the clinical trials, how people were being harmed and kind of like, oh, well, we'll stop this and go here. There was a lot of, kind of guinea pig testing of people. And ethically, I just find that, reprehensible. There's got to be straight protocols. I mean, there's needs for new drugs and vaccines, but not in the way, people are doing it kind of haphazardly.
Well, that's how the rationalization works, because my dad was at MD Anderson for a while, doing some research stuff in college. And, the argument is, well, if we kill some people, it's okay because we're going to find a cure for cancer, and so their deaths are all right. But then once you morally make the decision to be immoral, and my dad was low level, he never was. He was, just there in college a little bit. He just witnessed it. Once you make that decision, if we can do anything we want, this is for a greater good, well, then it's a slippery slope, as they say, down into Hades. We'll come back with final comments from our whistleblower inside the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Big Pharma, and your phone calls. Talk a little bit more about the structure, the secretive structure of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, and first, Alex, you asked me why I'm on your show. First of all, you do have a wide audience. You're very receptive. Your audience is in the know, and I don't have to go over the basics of the basics of the basics. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Well, I'm flattered. Thank you for coming on our broadcast.
So I'll speak to that, but you know how you're talking about, you know, your father at MD Anderson and things like that. I've talked to my colleagues, and every colleague to a person said, and I almost couldn't believe this, said, oh, well, these people are going to die of something anyway. I mean, I was actually a little shocked about that. So,
oh, really?
Like,
what if it was their children? See, there's not that empathy.
No, and they're kind of like, oh, they're in dire straits anyway, so, you know, they're probably going to die anyway, so why not try to help them, you know? And to me, that doesn't justify, you know, sloppy protocols. And well,
then next, hey, we got millions of ampules of something that has HIV in every shot. Everyone that's given this, because of the massive viral load, will contract it. It'll get past the blood-brain, you know, barriers. And just, you know, so what? Just let them all die. You know, they're hemophiliacs. They deserve to die.
Right. And so you're talking about collecting DNA samples. Yes, with pretty much when they come into different places, they do it for, especially with the HPV vaccine, they want to find out the incidence of AIDS with people that they're giving the HPV vaccine with, too, to see if, you know, what the AIDS burden is. But it's also just collecting people's DNA samples, you know, and, you know, running them through to archive them. So if you're doing this worldwide, I can honestly say that I can't think of a country that they're not in except maybe North Korea. And, I mean, even, you know, but they do it a lot of times through, like, the World Health Organization, like they even work with, you know, evil Iran and things like that. So, you know, there's always like a conduit. But, you know, in big pharma and foundations and everything, everybody knows everybody. Everybody's worked for everybody. I mean, in one pharmaceutical company, one of the people at the FDA had worked with our president of the company before, so she got orphan drug status. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a very incestuous group of people. You would think it would be not, but it is.
When you look at the numbers, and you're collating all these, some African countries, you'll have 40-45% of the population with HIV, which we know is a cover for a bunch of other soft kill operations going on by some of the New World Order types. And, you know, you see Nobel Prize winners coming out and saying HIV is a bioweapon in Africa. You see African leaders saying it, and then I've seen the BBC articles, I keep mentioning it, one a few years ago where they admitted, they said, you know, they tested thousands of girls, and none of them had ever had sex. You know, they looked at their anatomy, and they had medical exams done, and they said, but we don't know why then they all have who we tested have HIV. They never had blood transfusions. They never had, and they said, oh, maybe the health workers are using the same needles, but then you don't have as high transmission just with that level of the virus getting in. You know, it's a virus that is you need a high saturation to get high numbers of people contracting it successfully, at least with the previous mutations. So, I mean, just magically, I wonder how you're getting 40-45% in quite a few countries getting the HIV. I mean, what's going on there?
Well, you know, I'm not quite sure how they're transmitting a lot of this, but, you know, then you're presuming that these people actually had health care where they actually got stuck by a needle, which has probably never happened in their life, you know. So, you know, there could be some third transmission thing. They could be putting in their food somehow, or, you know, who knows? They could actually be spraying stuff because they do a lot of spraying for different things around there.
Well, that's the thing. So, HIV is really a weak virus, as you know. I mean, it lives in the air for about 3 seconds.
I think, you know, it depends. You know, you can kind of encapsulate. It doesn't last very long. It only lasts, you know, like 5 minutes on a toilet seat or something like that. So you'd have to really work at getting infected, which you probably couldn't do. But,
like you said, on a toilet seat, you could live, say, in saliva or live in some other excretion, you know, inside of the liquid. But, I mean, doesn't it, for those that don't know, oxygen is very corrosive. That's why it eats holes in steel, you know, over time. I mean, you're an expert in this. How long in open air, if it wasn't encapsulated, say, in saliva, would HIV live? Or you may not have those studies in front of you.
I don't have them in front of me, but, I know it's something really low, like, 10 minutes or something like that. And, they found that people who live with people who didn't know they had HIV or whatever have used their toothbrush, and, and you can be abrasive in your mouth with
Well, what
whatever.
is it about more than half the time women that have HIV don't pass it on to their baby?
Right.
Not even making it through the placenta, yeah.
Right. And if you give certain drugs and deliver the baby a certain way, you can avoid infection. I mean, a lot of times the babies will test positive that they've been exposed to the virus because there'll be antibodies in there, but they won't ever develop, HIV or AIDS. So.
That's another issue. Have you seen the studies that it's much more damaging to those that have black genetics?
Yeah, and other kind of, it's amazing because you can have really basically race-based, diseases